Saved a British Columbia man from a potentially deadly snake bite earlier this week. They believe the man was bit by a poisonous Bathrops asper snake while in Costa Rica. The man flew back to Vancouver after developing some severe symptoms. Thanks to some quick thinking by doctors and an emergency antidote flown in to Vancouver from Seattle, the man is recovering. And for a closer look at the snake in question, we are joined by Bry Lost. He's a curator of Canada's only accredited reptile zoo, the Indian River Reptile Zoo. You are extremely surprised, Bry, this guy even lived.
It is remarkable that he survived at all, considering the best thing to do when you're envenomated by a venomous snake is to go directly to the closest hospital and stay there. I'm just amazed that he survived at all.
Tell us a little bit more about this asper snake, the one that bit him.
It is an extremely dangerous snake, and it can cause so many effects to the body. It can destroy tissues, swelling, pain. You can bleed from all different parts of your body, and antivenom needs to be administered as soon after an envenomation occurs, as soon as possible. And in this case, it was a plane trip all the way from Costa Rica to Vancouver, and then another 6-hour wait, which is just, time is tissue. And I don't mean just tissue on the outside, I mean tissue on the inside, so your internal organs can shut down and you can die very quickly from a dangerous snake like this.
Speaking of quick, I mean the quick thinking by the doctors, the fact that they were able to get this antidote from Seattle, how typical is that they would have had to have gone to another city, that they wouldn't have it in the hospital in question, the supply of this stuff?
They don't have a supply of exotic antivenom in the hospital because they don't have exotic snake bite happen in the local area very often. So they always have to source it from somewhere else, and that can take, they connected the dots very quickly this time, but it can take even longer. So they did a very good job getting it as quickly as possible, but it needs to be administered even within an hour. So he may have permanent damage. You know, he's not out of the woods yet, I would think.
What have you brought with you here?
Just a sample of, this is the antivenom that they would have used and would have acquired from the zoo in the United States.
Yeah, just show it to that camera there.
Sure.
Right, and so they would have had this in Seattle. They would have flown it in. And you've helped out hospitals in situations like this sometimes, right?
Unfortunately, there are numerous venomous snakes kept within Ontario and other provinces, but the only source of antivenom is at the Indian River Reptile Zoo or the Toronto Zoo.
Is it surprising the hospital had to go to another country?
Not at all, no. It is very rare. It's also an experimental drug, so venomous snake envenomation is a medical emergency. It is a very serious matter, and antivenom needs to be administered as soon as possible, and it is very hard to acquire because hospitals don't stock it.
How common is this snake?
In Costa Rica and Mexico, and where it's native to, it is a very common snake, right where the public, right in the cities, and about 600 venomous snake bites occur in Costa Rica every year. And
I gather a fair number of them are fatal.
Some are fatal. If you get to a proper medical hospital in Costa Rica, that's where the man should have went and should have been treated. I would not suggest getting onto a plane and flying home if you're envenomated in another country. The best thing to do is stay at the hospital there. It seems in the newspaper article that he went to a clinic, not a hospital.
What's the timeline here, Bry?
It really depends on the bite, but the timeline, antivenom again should be administered as soon as possible. Within half an hour to an hour of the bite would be the best, not 12 hours later. It is a remarkable story of survival. I cannot believe he is alive.
When you are bitten by a snake, how do you figure out whether you have been envenomated, as you call? In other words, how do you know whether the snake has got venom or doesn't, and how deadly it is or isn't?
Well, it is hard to know. There are regular symptoms like severe pain, but if you're bitten by a venomous snake, or any snake, if you're not sure if it's venomous, you should go directly to the nearest medical hospital and seek treatment.
Okay, you work at a reptile zoo.
Yes, it is.
So you are a snake expert. So you can tell this snake from that snake from that snake. Most of us, though, of course, don't know snake A from snake B from snake C. So how do you figure out I was bitten by an asper snake or whatever?
When you're not an expert in snakes, it is very difficult, and that is a problem around the world of the physicians trying to figure out what snake is that particular
It's not
victim.
the same antidote for each snake,
no, there are monovalents that are specific to that species, like there's a king cobra monovalent, for example, that's used just for king cobras.
That's the antidote.
Then there's, and then there's an antidote that's polyvalent, which will cover a range of venomous snakes. So in Ontario, for example, we have rattlesnakes in Canada and in Ontario, and there's a polyvalent that is used for all of those groups of snakes.
I see.
So it sometimes can be a disaster figuring out what antidote to use for that particular snake bite or envenomation from any venomous animal.
Well, we're happy he survived, and thank you so much for your time.
Incredible story.
Yeah, absolutely.